When talking about matchups, a lot of players tend to have the impression that if they're in a losing one, then they just can't play to win the lane. Let's look at Lulu, a pretty popular support champion, and then compare her to a matchup that is considered to be bad for her. If we look at just the stats, Lux is a champion that performs really well against Lulu, being on average up about 500 gold at 15 minutes. When the sample size is this large, it is definitely statistically significant. Just thinking about how the two champions interact, Lux outranges Lulu with literally all 4 spells. So for Lulu, who usually is a ranged lane bully, it definitely doesn't feel too good in the lane to have that role reversed on her. So it makes sense why the gold differential statistic is the way it is. Lulu right now has a 51.8% win rate overall, and against Lux, that drops to 50.1%. So while she definitely loses power on average against Lux, we are here to tell you that literally none of that even matters. Why? Because matchups until super high elo don't mean anything. And even in Challenger, people still mess up enough that you can win even the absolute worst of matchups. If you don't believe me, well, let me just prove it to you. Let's go ahead and look at a gold game, where what we expect to happen does occur, but for all of the wrong reasons. At the beginning of the lane, Lulu actually wins this matchup. The main reason being that her passive helps a ton in being able to control the wave and get shoved. While Lux could E the wave, Lulu can also match the push with her own ability like Q, and then her autos are just better. While I could go on here about how Lulu and Jinx should be slow pushing this wave and not shoving as fast as they can in order to make better use of their level 2, I know plenty of people would say that they can't control their AD. And that's true. But Lulu could have been pinging here to try and get her to stop shoving, so she's just as guilty for not even attempting. However, let's just focus on the bigger issue, which is just Lulu not understanding how to use her early advantage at all. At this exact moment, Lulu should turn to hit the closest target. The reason being that Jinx is about to hit the last minion needed in order to get level 2, and then any ensuing fight will just be a clear win for the red side. Knowing to start fighting before the level 2 is a huge advantage, and by making use of it, we could bait the enemies into a really terrible trade. Even if the trade is not so good, it doesn't really matter. By crashing a wave in, you'll have an opportunity to recall, so you can just take the base and leave your opponents with their reduced health while you come back at full. However, this is not what happens. Lulu didn't even recognize that the level up was happening, and so she gets it and just backs away, trading 0 damage. With the way things have gone now, Lulu has essentially just traded her health away to crash a wave. But that crash didn't really net them any lead because she didn't know how to abuse her advantages. Now, she's just down health in a matchup where she gets outranged. Again, this doesn't mean that the lane is just doomed, but she needs to know what to do from here in order to win, and we're going to very clearly see that she doesn't know how to proceed. At this point, she needs to walk up to the wave again and start trying to regain the push. If you just let the wave shove into you, Lux will harass you under tower and make trading really hard. By pushing the wave, she can force Lux to either use harass on Jinx and Lulu, which would allow them to get a reset by crashing the wave, or she'll be forced to try and use spells on the wave to stop it from pushing, in which case Lulu can then be a lane bully and stop Vayne from CSing. Basically, wave control would give Lulu options here, and that's what she desperately needs. Instead, she doesn't auto the wave, and even when Vayne tumbles forward to threaten something, she is absolutely nowhere to be found. She puts out 0 pressure by being here and just fully concedes the shove, giving the opponents their optimal win condition. Although Lulu does make some egregious spacing errors that cause her to die here, it's clear from her actions that she just didn't really know how to win the lane. It wasn't a failure to execute or the matchup being terrible, she just actually didn't have a solid game plan when it came to how to play this lane out. To prove this even more, let's look at how in Challenger, with much better players on both sides, this matchup can look totally differently. In this lane, the enemies actually get in lane first and Lux is able to E the wave immediately, helping to secure the push for the blue side. However, when the second wave arrives, look at how differently Lulu plays this. Not only is she actively autoing the wave, fighting for control, she walks up to trade aggressively when Lux's E is on cooldown. We pause on a very similar frame in the last replay, and what you should notice is that the last minion for level 2 that Lulu needs is about to die. When we play this out, look at how there is absolutely 0 hesitation about trading here. She runs full speed towards the enemies and pushes them completely off the wave. Not only did she have an active part in helping to get level 2 first, She knew what to do before it happened. With this huge advantage in terms of health, level, and wave control, let's see what Lulu can do now. She stays aggressively in the third bush, continuing to zone and not giving any breathing room to the Lux. Throughout the lane, she maintains really good spacing. Lux can't really use any spells to try and hit Lulu here because Q will just be dodged and any E's will be shielded, making them useless. If we just think back onto how the gold Lulu played in the example before, this lane looks totally different. Even though it's supposed to be a losing matchup, this Lulu is winning, even against the better players. They get the third wave crash into a recall off, and at this level of play, that is a significant advantage. This lets Lulu have tempo to run around the map and set up vision for her jungler and mid laner. Obviously nothing really happens here, but if junglers were fighting over crabs or any skirmishes happened, Lulu would instantly win the game here because Lux had to stay bot to help crash the next waves. All Lulu and Jinx need to do in this lane is just go even, and by the nature of Lulu's scaling, she will come out on top. This early recall means Twitch and Lux don't have kill threat, and both Jinx and Lulu get to heal up, get items, and stall the game out, which is exactly what they want. Of course, not all matchups are going to go this way. Let's follow along with another great Lulu in Core JJ. The early lane is pretty similar. Core JJ takes Q at level 1 and fights really hard to get the push. He plays super aggressively and tries his best to outspace Lux and Caitlyn. For the most part, he does a good job of this, and him and his AD get level 2 first, just like in all the other games that we've seen. Unfortunately, after getting the level 2, they aren't able to zone the enemies off their level 2 and mess up spacing a tiny bit to take some free damage trying to exit the trade. This small mistake now leaves them with significantly less sustain than the opponents and less health. Because of this, they're basically forced to give up on wave control right after, and now the lane is just in a really rough spot. With a huge wave coming in and being low, they're worried about getting dove, and now they just have to recall and accept their loss. It's unfortunate, but such a tiny mistake can cause the whole lane to swing in one direction or another. Just from watching these two challenger games, you can see that the matchup can go in both directions. And for the most part, even though it's supposed to statistically be a bad matchup for Lulu, there are strengths that she has that she can leverage in order to win it. It's just a matter of if you play it well enough or not. Of course, we want to show that in low elo, the matchup can also swing both ways, and you'll see just how much easier it would be to win in an elo that isn't challenger. We're actually going to follow along using Lux's perspective for a bit because I want to show just how useless most supports you play against are going to be. While she initially walks up into the bush to try and throw a Q and pressure, after she misses, it's a whole lot of nothing. Actually sitting in the bush doing, nothing. I was not kidding. Most players will just do this, and if you're Lulu, you now get complete control of the lane at any point. Of course, if Lux at any point decided to actually try to get pushed as well, then maybe she would've, because well, Lulu isn't doing anything either. If we pause right when the enemy gets level 2, look at how far away they are. They weren't even aware of this level up at all, and Lulu isn't using her advantage in the slightest. The only reason why anything even happens in this lane is because Vayne overextends really hard trying to go for an all-in, straight into the enemy minion wave. But I want to point out that neither support was doing anything in this lane to influence it. It could have gone either way, if they had just recognized to fight for control of the wave at all. This kind of play is super common, and not just in what a lot of players think is low elo. I see supports in Diamond do this all the time. Even in Masters Plus, you see it occasionally. The point is that people are making so many mistakes throughout the lane and just don't have a clue of what to be doing, that the matchup is never what's going to matter. The only reason that has any effect at all is if both teams know what's going on, but if the person you're playing against is clueless, they could have every advantage in the world and not know how to use it, which is the case in 99.99% of everyone's games. Basically, it's time to stop blaming bad matchups for losing lanes, and instead just figure out how to punish the mistakes from the enemy and use your advantages to the fullest extent. In this guide, we showed the Lulu and Lux matchup going every way in high and low elo. It should be clear to see that it's not the champions that matter, it's just how you pilot them.
So you might be asking yourself, why go to SkillCapped.com to improve when I could just watch YouTube guides or play the game? Well, let me show you. Let's say you're a support who's struggling to climb the ladder. Not only would you get over 40 site-exclusive courses for support, but maybe really what you've been struggling with is trading as support. Well, we got you covered with 6 different courses breaking down how to trade as a support player. Not only do we have the largest catalog of guides for League of Legends in the entire world with over 1,500 videos to watch, but these are then curated by the top coaches and players into courses on every skill and topic you need to master in order to truly improve and climb the ladder. If all of this wasn't enough, we haven't even touched on our catalog of over 700 Smurf commentaries, where a challenger expert shows you how to climb out of your rank, and you're guaranteed to get any questions answered by them directly. Not to mention, we're the only service to offer a rank improvement guarantee. If you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a refund, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Head to SkillCapped.com and get the rank you've always wanted. Link in the description below.
Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.